everybody, welcome back to Jacey's Creek. My name's Emily and I do this podcast thing where we talk about Pacey and Joey as a couple and as individuals, so that way we can see towards the end what this whole thing was about. So today we are on season 3 episode 19 called Stolen Kisses, and I believe, according to Wikipedia, this came out on April 26, 2000. So, if you have not already, make sure to follow my Instagram, that's Witter and Potter, my TikTok, Pacey and Joey, and lastly, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and comment below. So, without further ado, let's get into this thing. So, we are on scene 1 of Pacey and Joey, where we see outside of Dawson's house, they're getting ready to unload the car for a trip, and Joey and Dawson are talking. And so Joey says, "What are you so smiley about, Dawson?" And Dawson says, "Look at us, Joe, what have we become?" And Joey says, "Careful to explode." And Dawson says, "Spring break. Most kids our age go to some assorted sun-dreamed location, don skimmy bathing suits, and inquire mass quantities of liquor." I don't know why he said that so fancy. Every time I hear that, I'm like, what are you even saying? And I'm going to the beach tomorrow, but and it's spring break, but at the same time I'm like, Dawson, chill. And he continues by saying, "What we do, we visit my aunt." It's kind of sad. Looking kind of sad, but it kind of proves that Joey and Dawson are more like family than ex-girlfriends and boyfriends. Just saying. And Joey says, "It's a rival. It's our rival. I'm glad we're visiting. I'm glad we're going. I love Aunt Gwen." And Dawson says, "And she loves you too." And Joey says, "I can't believe she's selling her house." And Dawson says, "I know, it feels like an end of the era." Because it is, but it's okay. And Joey says, "Do you think we could rope Jack and Andy into one of our late night karaoke sessions?" Dawson says, "Okay, I thought we agreed to go on living for the rest of our lives as that never happened." And Joey says, "Dawson Larry, ashamed of his own roots. You love that karaoke machine and you know it." And that's when Pacey comes up to them with this guy named Will, and they're both carrying bags. And Pacey says, "Hey guys, look what I found." And Joey says, "This can't be who I think it is, Will Crunchy." And Will says, "Hey," and Joey says, "The last time I saw you was in 3rd grade, kicking Pacey's butt around the playground." And Will says, "What was I supposed to do? He called me Lil Cruddy." And Pacey says, "It's a good thing you moved to New Reverend Powell, because without you to worry about, I became king at the playground." And Dawson says, "So what brings you to Cape Side, Will?" And Will says, "Thought I'd surprise an old friend." Pacey says, "And in the spirit of friendship, I took the liberty to tell Will that maybe you guys would have room for 2 more on the Emperor's journey." Dawson says, "I don't have a problem with that." And Will says, "I'm not intruding." And Dawson says, "No, not at all. Besides, the list to do in Cape Side when you're 16 is one review short." Which is kind of funny, because he's like, "Am I not intruding?" And Joey's over here like, yes, you are intruding, because I don't want Pacey here. And so Andy comes up with her bags, and she goes, "Hey guys," and Pacey says, "Whoa, beware the McVees bearing too much luggage." And Andy says, "Oh, thanks." And Pacey says, "Where's Shackers?" And Andy says he bailed in and spending time with quality times with Dad. "Oh, who's the kind-hearted gentleman?" And Will says, "Will." And Andy says, "Nice to meet you, Will. I'm Andy." And Will says, "Let me help you here." And Andy says, "Great, thanks." Which Will has no idea that Pacey and Andy dated. And so Pacey says hey to Joey, and Joey says hey, and she says, "So I thought you were sitting out on this one, Pacey." Which, okay. And Pacey says, "I was, until Will showed up on my front doorstep, and I just thought I would show him a good time." And Joey says, and Pacey says, "And they could probably use a end up there, so. Which, I don't think Pacey was wrong about this, but I don't think the only reason why he wanted to hang out was because of Will. I think he wanted to hang out because of Joey, which would make perfectly good sense, because I'm like, you know what? You two just kissed, and you said you were going to be friends, so be friends. You know what I mean? If you say you're going to be friends, Joey, take it into deep heart. So then we have scene 2 of Pacey and Joey, where they're in the car, and Dawson's driving to his aunt's, while Andy is in the back with Will and Pacey grilling for some information. And Andy says, "Okay, Will, quick get to know you. Favorite movie?" And Will says, "Well, when I was 5 years old, my dad took me to the Ramparts Planet of Ace, which you knew my dad is a really big deal, so I said the ranks as my favorite, and I'm really a good book guy." And Andy says favorite movie doesn't star Adam Sanders or Steven Seagulls, and he likes to read. You're sure you're friends with Pacey? Okay, favorite book. And Will says that's easy. Catcher in the Rain. Sours a God. And Andy says, what do you want to do when you grow up? And Will says, I don't know, just be happy, I guess. And Dawson says, you'll get a great, be along great with my aunt. She's a sour freak. And Will says, what's your aunt like? And Joey says she's an artist, a painter. She's incredibly talented. She paints and she reads great books, and she does yoga, and she lives on her life on her own terms. And Andy asks if she's married, and Dawson says she once was. She's to this uptight lawyer. She had this picture-perfect separate life, and then she met Richard, who was crazy bearded painter for about 20 years older than her. She left her husband for him and never looked back. And Pacey says, we're going to get to meet this wife-stealer peasant. And Dawson says, unfortunately not. Their happily ever after lasted a couple years. Richard died a year ago from a heart attack. And Andy said, wow, that's so sad. And Bill says, I don't know, isn't it better to have a short time with someone you really love than a lifetime who's basically your roommate? Just a thought. Okay, that was deep. So then we go to scene 3 of Pacey and Joey, where they're at Aunt Gwen's house, and Aunt Gwen is singing and dancing while cleaning when the group walks in, and Dawson gets her attention, and Gwen says, come on in, hello, oh Dawson, baby, you made it, hi, mwah. And Joey says, how gorgeous she goes, Joey, how gorgeous did you turn out? Wow, and this must be Pacey. Which I'm like, does Pacey not go to these events? Because that's kind of sad if Pacey doesn't go. Because, I mean, Pacey is quote-unquote Dawson's best friend, but then Joey goes to all these events. Okay. And Pacey says, I see my reputation pursues me. And Gwen says, actually, we met before. And Pacey says, we have. And Gwen says, yeah, I wouldn't expect you to remember. It was years ago at my sister's 4th of July picnic. And you were chasing this one, aka Joey, and teasing her miraculously. And when I went to intern, you said to me, hey, lady, step on my buzz, why don't you? And Andy says, ha ha ha, that sounds about right. Which is kind of funny that they're like, that Joey and Pacey, even back then, were like annoyed with each other, but you can just tell like that was a AKA meeting that Pacey had feelings for Joey even back then, because like I don't think like when he teases you like he likes you, I don't think that's the right thing, but I think like when you're that little and you don't really know what the feelings are, I do feel like he had some type of feelings for Joey in some type of way. Or whether it was jealousy or like, ooh, this girl's pretty, so I'm gonna tease her. Not saying that's the right thing to do, but I kind of think that's what it is. And so Gwen says to Andy, which makes you Andy. And Andy says, yep, nice to meet you, Aunt Gwen. And she says, hi. And Gwen says, hi. And this has to be Jack, right? And Pacey says, no, Jackers couldn't make it this weekend. So Aunt Gwen, please allow me to introduce my friend, Will Quincy. And Gwen says, how are you doing? Huh? Friends of Pacey's. Not a good sign. And Pacey goes, I don't know why I said it like that. It's always kind of funny to say it a little bit like that. Like, just imagine. But I really do like the scene where they're like, oh, like chasing Joey around, and he's still chasing Joey around for sure. And so then we have scene 4 of Pacey and Joey, and they are later in the evening in their bedroom, and they're all sharing, and Joey and Pacey are alone before entering the room, and Pacey says, hey, and Joey, why do they keep saying hey to each other? It's like, I know I keep mentioning Gilmore Girls, but have you ever seen this scene where it's Jess and Rory, and they're like, hey, hi, and when it comes over, it's like, hey, hi, make conversation. That's kind of how it is here. And Joey says, tell me, Pacey, is our conversation this kind of week based solely on Monon's grunts? And Pacey says, Joe, this is neither the time nor the place to be discussing events of weeks past. And Joey says, Glick, who wants to discuss? I thought we agreed that it was no big deal. Which, for someone who says, quote unquote, she just wants to be friends, she makes a pretty big deal about Pacey being around. Suspicious? I think so. And Pacey says, it isn't. And Joey says, fine. So there should be no weirdness between us, right? And they enter the room to find that everyone is left till on the floor, everyone's sleeping, and the only thing that's on there is the bed. And Pacey says, you're right, but I think we may have a small problem. And Joey says, you gotta be kidding me. Pacey, do something about this. And Pacey goes, Dawson, hey Dawson. And Dawson says, what? And Pacey says, what do you say you hop up and give Joey here your sleeping bag, huh? And Dawson says, and hop in the sack with you? And Pacey says, especially, yeah. And Dawson says, good night, Pacey. It's just kind of funny that, Dawson rather, does not want to sleep in the same bed as, Pacey. But Pacey wouldn't give up the bed for Joey. It's just random stuff like that where I'm like, okay, Pacey, you're such a guy. And Pacey says, Andy. And Andy grunts and snores. And Pacey's like, Andy. And Will goes, I'm not sleeping with you, Pacey. And Joey, I don't think we know each other well enough, no offense. And Joey says, none taken. And Pacey says, okay, we're just gonna have this work, okay? Alright? And Joey says, fine. But if I so much feel anything, and Pacey's like, Joe, get in the bed. And while you're at it, get over yourself. Which I'm like, oh, okay. I generally feel like this was a dad moment for Pacey. When dads go, get over yourself. That's how it feels for me. I'm like, okay. And Joey says, they get in situated, and they get in the bed, and Joey says, Pacey, get your butt away from me. And Pacey goes, my butt wants nothing to do with your butt, okay? Give me some covers, man. And he goes, Joe. I don't know why. This is literally the most funniest scene to me. It's a cute scene, not gonna lie, but at the same time, this is what I mean about them teasing each other. I feel like they tease each other when they were little because they were trying to figure out everything. And now here they are at 16, still teasing each other because they don't know how to handle the situation. And it's just, whew, all right then. So then we have the next scene, which is Pacey and Joey. And the next morning, Pacey has woken up, and he looks around at Joey, who is peacefully sleeping. And he looks like he's about to kiss her shoulder or something. I'm still honestly confused about this. Let me know if you are too. He looks over and he stares at her, and he goes back slowly when he realized when he hears Aunt Gwen. And Gwen goes, sleepyhead, breakfast, and Joey groans and she goes, oh man, and Pacey yawns, and they get up and join the rest of the group, and Gwen says, so glad you could join us, you two. I have a spectacular dinner planned for this evening, but first I must shop, and I'm going to steal Dawson and Joey to help me. The rest of you I encourage to explore the limited charms of my humble little broke down. Which is kind of weird that she's just taking Pacey and Joey and Dawson. Like, that's it? That's all you're taking? Alright. She says, we don't have much of entertainment. There's no minions, no monster truck show, but we do have this kick-ass little pool hall. And Will says, I love to play pool. And Pacey says, I'm down for any Bill in action. And Andy says, what is it with guys and pools? It's a fluence thing, right? And Will says, I'll teach you. And Andy says, okay, but you're going to have to teach me how to make the ball with the stick. And Will says, there's an art to you, you know? And Andy says, oh, okay, I get it. So you're like Tom Cruise, color of money, right? Mm-hmm. And they add that Katie Holmes married Tom Cruise. I know that Katie wasn't talking in this, aka Joey. However, they do kind of add slips here and there of Tom Cruise, and it always makes me laugh now in 2022 because I'm like, someone got married to Tom Cruise in this show. That's really weird, not gonna lie. I'm like, oh, okay. And another thing I want to add, Pacey was like, there's not much in Cape Side. Well, there's not much there either, but at the same time, I guess it's just Joey's there. So then we have scene 1 of Pacey, where they're at the pool house, and Andy, Pacey, and Will are playing pool, and Will is doing really bad, and Pacey isn't. And Andy chuckles and says, okay, Tom Cruise, color of money, right, you suck. And Pacey says, easy McPhee, they're fighting words. And Andy says, I thought he was supposed to be an amazing pool player. And Will says, I never claimed to be anything. I said I like to play. And Andy goes, ooh, and you said in some components action that you teach me. Looks like I should be the one giving lessons. What do you say, Pacey? And Pacey says, maybe you should cut some guy some slack. There is just some method to his madness. And Andy says, okay, all the right to say right away is the old me is whipping up the floor with just the two of you. And, sorry, man, I can't just seem to have the... Pacey says, I'm sorry, man, I can't seem to have those things on the 12 table. And he asked if she's interested in a game, and Andy says, no. Look, mister, these two are... Oh, a pool guy comes in. And I got confused because my notes. And they, the pool guy asked if you're interested in the game, and Andy says, no, look, mister, these two have been delayed and totally lame, so they're gonna set the record straight here, and must be sick and wrong to take money. And Will says, we'll play. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 1 of Joey, where they're in local store, and Gwen and Dawson and Joey are shopping there. And Dawson is looking at some posters when Gwen comes over, and Gwen says, what are you looking for? And Dawson says, something for my wall. And Gwen says, as I recall correctly, is a pastor done wall movie posters. You know, somehow I don't know this is going to get the whole geek aesthetic you got going. And Dawson says, the posters are gone, actually. I took them all down. And Gwen says, animes wasn't that bad, honey. And Dawson says, more like a crisis of faith, actually. And Gwen says, what do you mean? And Dawson says, well, I got tired of the larger-than-life dream to compose for a smaller-than-life. And Gwen says, okay, so the movie posters are down, film it's cluster. Am I detecting a significant lack of smooching, hand-holding, general, all the colors between you two? So, come on, tell me everything. Which... I'm like, I kind of get it at the same time, family does that, but at the same time, I'm like, that's kind of really awkward. You haven't seen this guy and, your, nephew in so long, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, so how's the hand-holding, why aren't you, together? And I'm like, girl, if someone asked me that, I would run out the door. I'd be like, peace out. But Joey looks awkward, but Dawson says, well, to make it a long soap opera short, we got together, and Joey says, which was so completely overwhelming that forced us to retreat into a long period of soul-searching. And Dawson says, which sent me into a dizzy cycle of depression And I finally managed to get her back, but Joey says it's exploring bad timing, and then he got back from the summer vacation, and Dawson says the possibility of my heart ripped out of my chest once again didn't seem it has appealing, so I decided it would make it better just to be friends. And Joey says, and then he asked Pacey to look out for me. Which, you want to know how Gwen replies to this? No, oh, that's a cute story, like, I'm sorry it didn't work out. No, she goes, what does Pacey have to do with this? Pacey doesn't have to do anything with this, but at the same time, like, it's a part of their story, like, it's important to Joey, so just let it go. Let it go, 30-year-old. And Joey says, nothing, but it's just, there you have it. And Gwen says, well, I do have one question. Why aren't you two together now? Because, didn't you just hear the whole story? Like, did you not hear the whole complicated story? That's why they're not together now, and aka Pacey. But at the same time, I'm like, Gwen, what does that matter? Why does that matter at all? And so then we have the next scene, which is scene 2 of Pacey, and they're outside the pool house, and Will was handed some money to Pacey, and he's counting out the rest of his hand, and Andy is looking at the two of them disgusted, and Andy says, you hustled them, because there was guys at the pool house, and they bet on money, and Will says, and this is a big deal, why? And Andy says, because I find it morally wrong and offensive and disgusting. I mean, I didn't come here with you guys, you know, as an element to the little seed scam. And Pacey says, Andy, Will's a jerk. He's always have been. What are you gonna do? And Andy says, I mean, you just let them think I was good. And Will says, you are. And Andy says, I am. And Will says, sure. And Andy says, okay, you're hustling me right now, aren't you? And Will says, maybe. And he hands her some money. And Andy says, what's this? And Will says, it's your share of the take. So obviously there's some chemistry going on with Andy and Will. Then we have the next scene, which is of Joey, and we have the scene outside where the group minus Dawson and Joey are washing a horse. It's kind of random, not gonna lie. And Dawson and Joey are on a loft, and they're talking to each other, and while the group is like screaming and laughing, you see a scene where Dawson says, Joey, do I seem different to you? Oh my gosh, not this again. Like, this is one of those scenes where we haven't seen Dawson in a couple episodes for Jacey's Creek, and I'm just like, it was so peaceful and like just going through the whole episode. And then we have Dawson back again, and it's like the soulmate thing all over again. Like, oh, suddenly we're soulmates again. Nope, we're not. Up we are, up we're not, up we are. And I know last episode he was in there, but like that was the first one, and it didn't seem that like draggy, you know what I mean? Because we didn't see Joey and Dawson, we just saw Pacey and Dawson. And second of all, because we already made a first point. Second of all, Dawson, Joey has been telling you over and over again that you have been different, and all of a sudden you're like, do I seem different to you? She should have been like, yes sir, I've been telling you. But she said, actually you are different, Dawson. Once upon a time you had the center of attention. Life revolves around you and your dreams. And recently I watched you fade into the background and let others shine. You're different. Which, no. You'll see that kind of like, I think, next episode. No, he's not different. And Dawson says, this trip this week reminded me of where we're good at. And Joey says, what's that? And Dawson says, we make sense of each other's life. We always have. And Joey says, things are changing, Dawson. People evolved, and some things drop away. And Dawson says, yeah, but things don't have to be a certain way, Joey. Growing up doesn't have an equal part of growing up. And Joey says, somehow it does. And Dawson says, you gotta find some little faith. Faith that whatever set off in different directions is the same that will bring us together. Which, can I add in this, where I recently went back on season 6, episode 23, I want to say, and it goes, have a little faith in me, and that's what it kind of reminds me of. And so, back to this scene where Joey says, I take it back, you haven't changed a bit, you're still a as an optimist, Dawson. And Dawson says, maybe. It's just, I don't know. I'm starting to forget why. And Joey says, why what? And Dawson says, why we're not together. And at that moment, guess who comes up and shouts at them? Pacey Witter. And Pacey goes, hey, you guys want to come down and give us a hand? That's why they're not together. And Dawson does not know that. And I found that very funny. Because right at that moment, Dawson comes over, or Pacey comes over, and it's like, hey, you guys want to do something? Like, you guys want to help out? So then we have the next scene at Aunt Gwen's house. Joey's looking at a painting of Aunt Gwen's house when Gwen comes up, and Joey says, that's my favorite, I think. And Gwen says, and it's like a house barn. And Gwen says, when I was married, I started taking art class. And the first thing the teacher said was, close your eyes and paint your future. And the rest will take care of itself. And it did. And Joey says, you painted this before you lived here? Do you have any regrets? And Gwen says, about. And Joey says, the way in which you and Richter came together. And Gwen says, you know, Joey, I got married too young. And I sold in a big way. I stayed in a relationship that made me safe and comfortable. And then I met this man who made me feel alive for the first time. Those kind of feelings don't just be ignored, you know? I owed it to myself to explore them. And then she shows a picture of her favorite, which is of Joey and Dawson when they were kids, and Pacey comes over and he goes, hey, and Joey says, hey. Oh my goodness. So, first of all, when you see this, Gwen kind of just described how Joey's feeling, and obviously we're going to see that later. But with this, I love how she says, when Joey asks if she has any regrets, and she says, no, I was safe and comfortable, aka describing Dawson and Joey. I've been saying this the whole entire episode. I've been saying for the past 6 episodes or whatever, they have been so comfortable with each other, and that's why they're together. And then she met this man, aka Pacey, who made her feel alive for the very first time. I don't want to say that Dawson never made her feel good, but at the same time, she was safe and she was in her element. And Aunt Gwen really thinks that would be Joey and Pacey. So then we have the next scene at Aunt Gwen's house where they're singing at the karaoke machine, and Pacey's watching them from the couch and smiling. And the group goes, Luis, oh, we gotta go. Oh, yeah, Luis, oh. And they're all laughing, and Andy's laughing, and Pacey's singing now, where he goes, wild thing, you make my heart, aka imitating Elvis Presley, which, if you did not know, I went to Graceland. I don't think I've said this actually. I went to Graceland this year in January, and it was so fun. And so every time I see this part of the scene, I always get so excited because I'm an Elvis fan. And Joey's smiling at this point. It's so cute. She's smiling at Pacey, who's doing this imitating thing. And Gwen says, and now I like to bring up to my very favorite people to perform their own special number. Dawson and Joey. Ooh, and Dawson says, God, I'm not going to sing. Which, of course you're not going to sing. Of course you're going to make a big deal out of this. And Gwen says, get up here. Come on, Joey. And Dawson says, ready? And Andy goes, woohoo. And Dawson says, oh no. And Joey and Dawson says, oh, I go to her beneath the wings of the bluebird's eyes it sings. 6 o'clock along will never ring. And they go, I can't believe we're doing this. Oh, but it rings. And I rise, wipe the sleep out of my eyes. The shaving razor is cold, and it sings, ha ha. Dun, 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 dun. Cheer up, sleeping Jean. Oh, can it be to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? With JK, that's when Pacey walked out of the room. I love this song. I always sing it in my head. I always go, sleep in dreams. And my pop, which is my mom's stepdad, he started playing this song, and I thought about Pacey and Joey and Dawson and Joey, and I was like, cheer up, sleep. I knew all the words to this one. So then we have where Joey comes up to Pacey, and they're outside, and Pacey is sitting alone by the fire when Joey comes to join him. And she asks, are you okay? And Pacey said, not so much, no. And Joey says, well, what's wrong? Joey, do you really want to ask what's wrong when it's literally standing right in front of you? Like, Pacey is upset about Dawson. Like, get over yourself. Look at the real sign. And Pacey says, well, it's the history. It's killing me. How can I compete with the guy when the two of you have your own karaoke song? And Joey says, Pacey, you're not supposed to compete. We're supposed to have our own hit. I didn't mean that. She goes, history. Oh, no, did not mean that. And Pacey says, well, what did you mean? And she's like, Joey goes, I don't know anymore, Pacey. Pacey, you know, this little arrangement we have going on between us? And Pacey says, you know this little arrangement we have going on between us? And Joey says, yes. And Pacey says, well, it sucks. It sucks one side and the other. It's uncomfortable. It's weird. I hate every second of it. Joey says, really? And Pacey says, yes. Joey says, then why'd you come here, Pacey? And Pacey says, you know, for a bright girl, you can be really deaf sometimes. Why do you think I came here? I came here to be with you. It's as simple as that. I mean, when you like someone, proximity is a good thing, regardless of how they feel about you, or don't, as that case may be. Which, I like that. I really, really like that scene. Because he just basically, like, I always say this, Pacey just says what's ever on his mind, and he just goes for it. Like, he does not hold back. He's like, okay, so you really don't know why I'm here. Like, that's his whole thing. And so, when Joey says, but I felt it, and Pacey goes, what? And Joey says, this morning, your arm brushed against mine in bed, and I felt it. And Pacey says, how did it feel? Joey said, made me feel alive. So, we're going to hold this scene for a second, and we're going to go back a couple of scenes where Aunt Gwen and Joey are sitting in the kitchen, and they're talking about how Joey felt, or Gwen felt when she made this painting. So, Joey says, you painted this before you lived here. Do you have any regrets? And Gwen says, about? And Joey says, and the way you and Richard came together. And Gwen says, you know, Joey, I got married too young, and I sold out in a big way. I stayed in a relationship that made me safe and comfortable, and then I met this man who made me feel alive for the first time. Those kind of feelings don't just be ignored, you know? I owe it to myself to explore them, and I love that. Because then we go back over to Pacey and Joey, where they're sitting over here, and they're talking about how she felt it and how it made her feel, which made her feel alive. And Pacey's response to this is literally everything. Pacey says, okay, Joey, I'm gonna kiss you now. And Joey says, you can't. And there's like, she's literally about to cry in this, or she is crying. And Pacey says, Joe, you can't just say something like that and expect me not to kiss you. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna kiss you in about 10 seconds. And if you don't want me to kiss you, well, I guess you're just gonna have to stop me. And they start kissing, and we're gonna hold in this moment before someone interrupts it. It's literally the cutest thing. I'm gonna say that where they go 10, 9, 8, kiss. And it is like a makeout section. That is not a kiss, that is a makeout section. And this scene will come back later because in season 4, episode, I don't want to say it wrong, but I'm probably going to say it wrong, 15, I believe, where Pacey and Joey have sex for the first time, Joey says this to Pacey, and it comes back. So then we are interrupted by Aunt Gwen, And Joey goes, my God. And Pacey says, I think I should sing more karaoke. And Gwen acts like Joey just did something wrong. Like, Dawson and Joey are not together, but Aunt Gwen sure acts like it. And he goes, because Lord knows that's what I should be doing right now, is singing myself some karaoke. And Gwen says, that's a spectacular idea, Pacey. Well, and then Pacey leaves, and she goes, at least I understand why you and Dawson aren't together. And Joey says, okay, I know what you just saw, and I can explain. And Gwen says, what I saw was none of my business. And she goes, I think you should tell Dawson. And Joey is like, it was a mistake. And to my reply to that, you know that, like, audio where it goes, So I'm going to play that audio because I think it's kind of describing how Joey is at that moment. And I'm like, girl, like, you're gonna really call that a mistake, but you made me feel alive. Oh no, it was a mistake. And I'm just like, as I'm like, first of all, you can't go, it made me feel alive, and then go, oh, it was a mistake. I'm just kidding. Like, Joey, you can't do that. And even Aunt Gwen was like, maybe none of my business, but I know that was not a mistake. Like, something tells me when you kiss that boy, it's not a mistake. And, you know, I'm the last person that's going to judge you, but when you cannot be reckless with someone else's feelings, which actually does make sense. And she said, what if it would have been Dawson that has on you and not me? And, I mean, do you think he'll ever be to erase that from his mind? And Joey sighs, which, okay. I mean, Dawson's gonna react either way, and I think, like, Dawson reacting in some type of childish way, I mean, he does, but at the same time, I'm like, it's none of Dawson's business either way. Like, Joey and Pacey can be whoever they want to be, and it, like, again, like, they're not together, so why does it matter? But Aunt Gwen is very certain that they are together. Like, you know, maybe we are together. Maybe we'll have a great big family with Dawson and Joey and have a lovely life together. Okay, so then we have scene 3 of Pacey, where he's inside and he's sitting there where Andy comes up and joins him. And he goes, hey, and Andy asks if he's okay. And she says, you seem a little storm cloudy, which is kind of how she described Joey last episode. And Pacey says, just thinking about how maybe it would be great to start that delusional drug habit that I always wanted. Just kidding. And Andy says, you know, your friend Will, he's not what I expected. He's really sweet. And Pacey says, yeah, he's a good guy. I mean, his family moved away a long time ago, but we managed to keep good in touch, I guess. Once to bond over my dysfunctional dad issues, there's no turning back. And Andy says, yeah, he told me about his father. It's pretty sad. And Pacey said, he told you? And Andy says, yeah. And Pacey says, do you like him or something? And Andy says, maybe, maybe not. Who knows, Pacey? But it's better to be honest and open up with things. I mean, you can carry on this whole burden of guilt over moving on, which by nature has to be, but I want you to be happy, Pacey. And Pacey says, yeah. And he sighs, which is kind of a good scene with Andy and Pacey, but at the same time, like, it's like, I don't think, like, when you move on with your, like, from your ex, it can be hard, or seeing someone move on. And I'm not saying, like, Pacey had that, like, guilt with Andy, but in a certain sense, like, he was just curious because, I mean, Will is his friend, so it kind of does make sense, but at the same time, like, he was like, okay, so Andy can move on, so now I can move on. Like, this is great. But at the same time, it's kind of like, alright, like, what's gonna happen next? Like, that's how we are feeling. And it's kind of silly, but at the same time, like, it makes sense where you're having all these, like, feelings, and you're moving on, and you're getting over yourself, and it's good to see Pacey kind of talking about it with Andy and not really saying, hey, I like Joey, but in a sense where it's like, hey, like, it's okay to move on. Which, I don't know why Andy later in the season gets all jealous with Pacey and Joey. I'm like, you said it's okay to move on, and then you get all jealous about that. Okay, Andy, whatever you say. So then we have the next scene, which is scene 4 of Joey. And they're inside Aunt Gwen's house, and Dawson is looking at some pictures of him and Joey as kids when Joey comes into the room. Joey says, oh, and Dawson says, hey, take a look at these. What a dork I was. And Joey says, no, you weren't. Well, maybe a little. Can we talk? And Dawson says, yeah, what's up? And Joey says, and Gwen just interrupts, like, oh, sorry, I'm interrupting something. And Joey says, actually, no, it's okay, we'll talk later. And Dawson says, okay, and Joey leaves, and there is a whole painting of Dawson and Joey, and Aunt Gwen gives it to Dawson. Yeah. And you know how I feel about that? You want to know how I honestly feel about that? That's how I feel about that. That is exactly how I feel when she hands that painting. Like, yeah, it's a cute painting. I get it. But the aunt is obsessed with their relationship like this. I get that she's, like, going through something. I don't think I would take advice from her. And then, like, she interrupts them and then hands it, like, oh, you should tell Dawson. And then hands a whole painting to Dawson of Joey and Dawson as kids. Like, that's gonna make him really obsessed with this whole thing. And I think we only see this painting, like, in season 3. So then we have the last scene, which is all of our favorite scenes, where they're outside of Gwen's house, and Pacey is sitting alone by the fire, again, when Joey walks up to him, again. And Pacey says, you don't have to worry, I'm not gonna kiss you, Joe. And he goes, what's going on here? And Joey says, I don't know. And Pacey says, don't you think I deserve better than that after all of this? And Joey says, Pacey, believe me, I've been trying to get you out of my head. I've been trying to pretend that this is just some bizarre hormonal glitch, but it's not working. And Pacey says, do you really want to work? And Joey says, I try to tell him. And Pacey says, really? And Joey says, yes. And Pacey says, what happened? What happened was, Glenn kind of interrupted me, and there was a whole painting of me and Dawson. Obviously, that's not what Joey said, but that's what happened. But instead, Joey says, well, I couldn't find the words, Pacey, which was odd considering the sheer volume of my words spoken throughout this relationship, but... And Pacey says, what would you have said to him? And Joey says, I don't know. And Pacey says, I don't believe you. And Joey says, Pacey, I don't have the right answers right now. Can't you understand that? And Pacey says, the only reason that you don't have the answers is because you're too scared to ask yourself the right questions. Damn, Pacey just described Joey in so many words. Okay, so this reminds me of season 6, episode 17. Where Pacey goes, I know you're scared, like you're scared of a lot of things, and I know that you're scared until you run away. And this is what he means, like, this is exactly what he means. And I love how he continues this, like, or Joey continues this by saying, what are you talking about? And Pacey says, look, I know how I feel. You know how you feel. That is obvious by now. But doing this whole process, we managed to miss the point, because the point is not how I feel, it's how you feel. So how do you feel? And Joey's like, at this point, crying. And she goes, awful. That's how I feel, Pacey. I feel awful. And Pacey says, so do I. When I was kissing you tonight, I didn't feel any better or any worse at one time in my life. I mean, the very idea that Dawson or Andy would find me is killing me. It is tearing me apart inside. And these feelings for you, I can't get rid of. I can't keep on kissing you, Joe. And Joey's like, what do you mean? And Pacey says, I mean, just that. I can't keep on kissing you, alright? I've done it twice now. Actually, you've done it 3 times, but we're just gonna ignore that. And he goes, I can't be the one that always initiating this. I can't be the one who's giving you the answers. And Joey's like snuffling over here, like, like I'm so sad. And Pacey says, look at me, Joey. And you know it's serious when he doesn't call her Joe or Potter or anything like that. He actually calls her Joey. And Joey says, I can't. And Pacey says, please, if you felt even one shred of how I feel for you, then we wouldn't be standing there having this conversation. Which, tears are coming to my eyes. My heart is beating so fast. Can you tell I'm in a silly goofy mood? Like, Pacey, don't break my little heart over here. Like, I don't have room for that. And Joey goes up to him because she pulls his arm and she kisses him. And there's like a fire. And you know what's popping up? You want to know the song that's coming up? I will show you. I won't sing it to you because I don't want to hurt your ears. But I will sing it. Oh, no, that's not the song that came up. That is not the song that came up. Are you ready? Are you sure you're ready? Are you sure you're ready? Okay, hold on, there may be an awkward silence. It's already in my recent history. Literally the perfect song for Pacey and Joey at this moment. However, it's more like in like a girl's voice, and it's very like calm and collected, and it's not so like rap-y and that kind of stuff. It's more like cheer up, sleeping Jean. Oh, I can't, like in a soft voice. You know what I mean? Like amazing. So hopefully I don't get copyrighted on YouTube for that. But generally speaking, I love this episode so much. I think with the whole like Dawson and Gwen and all that kind of stuff, like I don't like that at all. But I do like obviously Pacey and Joey, and how Pacey isn't mad at Joey, but in a sense he's like, girl, wake up, like here I am, like I'm kissing you all the time and I don't want to do that anymore. Like I don't want to waste my feelings on this. And obviously, like, he's like, I don't want Andy to figure out, but Andy said, like, go on, move on. Like, that's basically what she was saying. And Dawson was like, I don't know if I feel the same way as Joey. Like, he's just always like, do I feel the same way? And do I not? And we're gonna get back into that later. So, if you like this episode, please make sure to subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's Jacey's Creek Podcast, where I post every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. There's also other platforms that you can listen to, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure to review this podcast with kind words, please, only. Make sure you comment, subscribe, share, whatever you need to do. And also, you can catch every episode again on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I would love to hear your thoughts on Instagram. That's Witter and Potter. And my TikTok is Pacey and Joey. I hope to see you guys again at Friday and Saturday and Sunday. I love hearing your guys' thoughts, so please make sure to comment down below. Bye guys.